Hi, my name is James Anderson. Welcome to James Anderson Media Channel. On this channel, I like to show you how to edit and produce digital media. Whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned digital media producer, hopefully you find some value in this channel. If you're interested in anything like that, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, James Anderson Media. And then you can also like and subscribe, and you can follow me on Instagram at jamandmedia and on facebook.com/JAmedia2012. So today we're going to look at a raw image that I captured at a wedding for a couple of really close friends. It's a really great image. Just a couple of things that we can do to turn it from a good image to a great image. So we'll go over that in today's tutorial. Beautiful couple. Here we can select the photo, and right now I have it selected as 5 stars. We're just going to go into this camera raw, and this gives me a whole lot of tools to work with over here on the right. Today we're going to be using the basic features, and then we're going to be looking at this histogram up here, and we may even bring it into Photoshop for a little bit of Photoshop manipulation. Okay, so here we go. Let's start up here. This is the histogram. This is a visual representation of the different light waves that are in your photo. The left side is more darker shades. The right side is stacked for more brighter shades. So as you can see, this is kind of a little blown out. It was shot at an ISO 500 with a 35mm lens, and then it's an f4. That's the depth of field. So the lower the depth of field, the lower the number on the depth of field, the greater the blur will be for the background, and the crisper your subjects will be. So the background should be pretty blurred, as you can see up here with the brick. Looks pretty well shot. So it's a decently captured exposure. It was at 1/400th of a second, so pretty fast. We do like that. So here we're going to come down, and maybe we're going to tamp down that exposure just a tad so we can bring down some of those whites, and then we're going to take this highlights down. We're going to go to the highlights. Exposure controls all of it, and as you can see, when I move the exposure cursor, that histogram moves, so you can kind of see the light shift, so that kind of helps guide it. Let's go with a nice 0.4. Okay, now we're going to go over to highlights. I skip over contrast often. Most standard photos I don't need a whole lot of contrast, or if I'm doing contrast, I'm doing it within the photo. But here, now we're going to take down some of the highlights. And then that, if the highlights are too much, it can make like detail in our whites blow out. We don't get as much detail in there. So we're going to bring them down, and then we might be able to get a little more detail. I'm going to go back to this whites one that's underneath it. I don't know why they're not both next to each other, but highlights and shadows kind of relate to each other. Shadows talk about just kind of the shade and these shadows that are on are from our subjects here. So maybe this like rose is a little bit in the shade, like just down here on his lapel. So we can brighten those shades up, but I don't want it too much because I don't want it to be blown out. And shade also gives kind of definition lines too, so I don't often mess with it unless I need to really bring the shades out. We're going to bring down the whites just a little bit too, so now it looks a lot better. We'll bring down the blacks just a tad, and the blacks just deal with the black colors, like his tuxedo. This black color on the tuxedo is real nice. Okay, so we've got a pretty decent, it looks a lot better. Original, pretty blown out, and then we toggle it back, and it looks a lot better. It's standing out a little bit better. They're really standing out a lot better on this one. So that's just kind of basics. Let's go over, now we're going to bring it into Photoshop. Let's go ahead, because I don't like on the photo, it looks like that rail is going right through her back. I want to get rid of that. And so we're just going to use a real quick, we're going to use a real quick clone stamp tool. And that tool will help us remove some objects in the background and maybe clean up some of the background. It's kind of like the background is the subject that's there, but it's kind of not, it's not the main subject, but it helps accentuate and elevate whatever subjects you have in your photograph. So if I can do things to the background to help draw the attention to the foreground, then I'm going to go ahead and do that. And you know what? Before we get back into here, I'm going to do one thing that I typically like to do in a photo before I bring it into Photoshop. We'll come back. One thing I missed. I like messing with the temperature. I like adjusting the temperature here. It's in Kelvin, and they look pretty good right here as is. But I'm actually gonna bring down the exposure just a little more, just based on what I was looking at. Looks way better. Okay, and I like to bring it up to about as close as I can to 6,000 Kelvin without everybody looking too orange. I like to give it kind of that golden hue. It's kind of it's my personal trademark on my photos is that little golden hue. Gives that golden hour kind of a feel. Just kind of gives it a little more magical feel if I'm getting closer to that 6,000 Kelvin. If I go too close to 6,000, maybe it's a little too orangey. So anywhere between 55 and 6,000 I like. Sometimes I'll go a little over 6,000 Kelvin. And I really don't need to do any kind of cropping here. I have this here that I was talking about that I want to get rid of, and we'll get rid of that in Photoshop. But I don't want to crop it too much because right now they got good, they have a good balance in the middle of the photo here. If I crop it, maybe one gets kind of cut off. Or let's just take a look. So we go to this crop tool. And right now it's already playing off of my lower thirds. On my rule of thirds, you use this kind of 9-box grid to pinpoint your targets. I like this target, this cross section, this cross section, this cross section to place my subjects. So I don't really need to do a whole lot because it's already aesthetically there. You know, because like I said, if I bring it in a little more, it's not too bad. But then there's not a whole lot of space for his head. So we're gonna get rid of the crop. This is kind of how you use the crop tool. We'll go over that in another video, a little more in depth. Okay, so now we're going to open it up again in Photoshop. Okay, and so what we're going to do here in Photoshop is we're going to desaturate the background a little bit. So then that way it really makes them pop. And then we're also going to get rid of this pole that looks like it's going through the bride. We want to get rid of that. Just make it, just look, just have it be them. And these are some things that we can do to the background in order to bring our subjects out just a tad more. So we're going to go over to the clone stamp tool here. You can press down and hold it and clone stamp, or you can do pattern stamp. I haven't really used pattern stamp too much. Okay, so I'm going to hold Control, and then I'm going to use my trackpad to zoom in, or it's a option, and I'm going to use my trackpad to zoom in here. And I want to get rid of all this, so I'm going to Alter Option, or Alter Option, depending on if you're on a Mac or a PC. You're going to take that stamp, and maybe I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Hardness, let's go 13. I like to stick to Fibonacci sequence numbers whenever I'm adjusting certain things like that. and then I kind of go with the size. It just kind of depends on the object. So I kind of measure it to make sure that looks like that covers just about. I'm going to go 100. We'll go 100. Look at that. Okay. And then now we're going to cover it up, but I'm going to make sure that my dropper that I take from is behind my mouse where I'm going. And I like to get from all over because then it kind of samples the rest of the bush. And then there we go. Don't want to get too much onto this dress. Actually, we didn't get any. I think that's pretty good. Okay. And now already that's looking way better because it doesn't look like it's going through. Okay. And now we're going to Command all. That's going to select everything. I'm going to copy, I'm going to paste, and that'll create a new layer of the same exact thing I did. Okay. And right now I'm just going to, with this one, I'm going to hide the bottom layer, but I'm going to make sure that I have the second layer topped. It works kind of like a sandwich, so whichever layer I select is on top is going to be there. I'm going to use my quick selection tool here. I'm going to bring up the size a little bit more since they're a little larger. But then I also like it small enough to where I can get like little detailed areas too if I need to, but I think this should be fine. So let's go ahead and start selecting, and Adobe uses its AI to select them. Okay. Made our quick selection, and if there's a part where like in here that I don't want to select, I can just hit Alt and then my plus change to minus, and I can kind of go in and refine it just a tad. Go in, and then we make it just a little bit smaller, just so that way we can get those areas, and then we can kind of refine like their brow. Okay. Make sure go around and make sure you have everything you need selected, because I just want the couple. Make sure you get their hands here. Looks pretty good. Okay. And then we're going to layer, new layer via copy. And what that does is that totally just isolates them, which is wonderful. And I didn't disrupt the original image there. I didn't disrupt it. So I've just got this whole new copy of it here and there. So that's nice. Now I'm just going to work on just a little bit of desaturation, and then I think this photo will be done. So we're going to go up to Hue and Saturation, click on it, and then I'm going to desat the background a little bit. Let's go to a nice 50. I can't move it there. We'll just go negative 50. There. And that's kind of nice because that really brings out it brings them out a little more. See, so right now it's good, full, vibrant image, but we desat the background just a tad, and they really stand out. I could completely saturate and completely blow out the background, and that'd be a little awkward, so we don't want to do that. If anything, we desaturated it just a little bit, so that way the saturated colors kind of draw the eye. Let's go 20. I think 20 seems real nice, real pleasant. Yeah, so that's a little bit of tutorial on editing the photos, and kind of just your basic highlights, navigating around in Bridge, understanding what a histogram is, and then we did a new layer via copy, and we looked at the hue and saturation and looked at the clone stamp tool. So hopefully, this tutorial, if you have Adobe Photoshop, helps you adjust a little bit of some of your settings to improve your photos. And I thank you for watching.